Howdy-ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to Let's Talk Oilers. So this is my weekly show every Wednesday, filmed on Monday. This time I'm filming on Monday, January 19th, 2026. Already almost 20 days into the year. Just going by like that now. So anyway, what do we want to talk about today? So I was listening to 880 Ched. Hey, I think I'm finally starting to get the hang of not saying 630 Ched anymore. And reading Oiler Nation. And I got to stop reading Oiler Nation because those guys are just, they're trolls. They do the reactionary headlines to try to get clicks. And today they were talking about goaltending. And do we need to get rid of Calvin Pickard? And it got me thinking about it because Stauffer's constantly talking. And Stauffer has been cherry picking stats. Like the other week, and it's funny, it made me laugh because I'm the only one I've ever heard say this, that Stauffer lies to you. And I was listening to his show and just out of the blue, he's like, "We do not lie to you." I'm like, I think I know somebody's been listening to my show, even if you won't recognize it. But okay, whatever. And anyway, so Stauffer's been cherry picking stats. And he did that again today, where he was like, well, ever since we did the goalie trades, Jari and Ingram, they've turned around the season. Well, again, that's not true. That's not true. Like, I'm not saying Jari and Ingram have been bad because they haven't been bad. You know, Jari had some stumbling points at right when the trade happened because he fell victim to what Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard were falling victim to, is the team in front of them were not playing defense. And for a couple of games, Jari struggled because he was getting no support. But the truth of the matter is, even before the trade, we saw Stuart Skinner get a shutout and have a couple of good games. And the reason for that is that this team plays better in the second half than the first half. And they've done this for years. And the stats that everyone was bitching about with Skinner was from the first half. He was being hung out to dry by the team and he wasn't getting any support. And when that happens, Stuart Skinner struggles. That's not news to anyone. And that's what Jari came into, is he got hung out in a couple of games and he struggled as well. Like, if you really look at it, Tristan Jari and Stuart Skinner are basically the same goalie stat-wise. They really are. It's Jari might be a little bit more athletic, but he's also more injury-prone. And he moves the puck better than Stuart Skinner. Whereas Stuart Skinner, he's probably better at rebounds than Jari is, because we've seen Jari batting at it and dropping the puck on opponents' sticks. Whereas Skinner, the problem for Skinner was he would make the save and he would control the rebound, but his defense weren't clearing the puck after he controlled the rebound. Like, Skinner wasn't putting it on an opponent's stick like Jari's done. You know, so, you know, it's a give and take. No goalie is perfect, not even Patrick Waugh or Hasek or, any of the all-star goalies. They're not perfect either. And the Oilers were not protecting Skinner where he had problems. That is the long and the truth of it. So is Jari a better fit for the Oilers? Well, we really can't say that because it's not a big enough pool of games. He came in, he played 3 games and then he got injured and he was out, and now he's back and he's played, I think, 2 games back. So, it's 5 games, maybe 6 games. It's not a big enough pool to make any sort of judgment. Ingram has had 8 starts. If you listen to Stauffer, 7 of those starts were excellent. That's not true. About 5 of the starts were excellent. 2 of the starts were questionable or average, and 1 of the starts was horrific. But again, no goalie is ever perfect. So Ingram has been way better than I expected him to be, because he was not good in the AHL and he was bought out because he was not good on his last NHL team. So he was only brought up because of his off the ice connection to Knobloch. That's the only reason he was brought up. If they were like Stauffer likes to throw out, oh, it's meritocracy. No, it's not, because if it was meritocracy, the other AHL goalie, I forget his name now, he would have been the one called up because he had far better stats than Ingram in the AHL. Ingram got up because Knobloch has a relationship with Ingram's father. That's completely off the ice. That has nothing to do with hockey. But we've seen Knobloch do this before. So that's why Ingram came up. But props to Ingram. He's made the best of it. And I'm not gonna, I don't cherry pick stats, and I don't spin things to suit my agenda. If you can prove me wrong, like you've heard me talk about Bouchard, you've heard me talk about Savoy. If either of them ever prove me wrong on my complaints, they haven't, but if they do, I'll eat the crow. I won't try to cherry pick stats to try to build up my opinion. I'll eat the crow and say, hey, they proved me wrong and well done. When I make a negative comment about any Oiler player or coach, I want them to prove me wrong because I am an Oilers fan. So ultimately, I want this team to win the Stanley Cup, and I want this team to be a powerhouse. And if they can prove me wrong, but I'm not going to ignore the bad and just tell you about the good. Again, Stauffer, he does this all the time with Bouchard. Bouchard is a one-dimensional offensive defenseman, and he's very good as an offensive defenseman. And anyone telling you differently is an idiot. Evan Bouchard is very good as an offensive defenseman. He's below average, far below average, as a defensive defenseman. And I've said it many times, I don't expect Evan Bouchard to ever be a shutdown defenseman. What I want is for him to keep his offense up here, but I want him as an average, right at the average defensively. And he's not. And until he is, I'm going to keep calling him out for being subpar defensively. Other media in Edmonton, they will try to say, oh, well, he's now improving as a defensive defenseman. No, he's not. Even if you watch him on the penalty kills, basically all he does is stand there. He doesn't really do a hell of a lot. He just stands there and his mind is totally focused on offense. If the puck comes to him, that's where he shines. But if he needs to block a shot, no, he makes himself as small as possible. If he needs to be physical, no, that's not going to happen. We've seen it game in and game and game where players get behind him and he just lets them sit in our slot. So, no, he's not a good defensive defenseman. He's subpar. Savoy was supposed to be a top 6 player. I've not seen that player. I haven't. I keep hoping he'll step up and wake up, but we're 50 games into the season and I'm not seeing it. He's got no chemistry with Connor McDavid, so he's not good on the first line, contrary to what Stauffer keeps trying to tell you. Go look at the stats. I mean, I'm not a stats guy, but you're welcome to go look him up. He has no chemistry with Connor McDavid. He's got a little bit of chemistry with Leon, but Kapanen and Rosevich are heads and tails better with Leon than Savoy is. So why would you play Savoy ahead of Kapanen or Rosevich with Leon Draisaitl and Podkolzin? Because Podkolzin and Leon have great chemistry together, and Savoy's not a bottom 6 player. I make no bones about it. I don't see where Matt Savoy fits on this team. And I was happy to hear Ryan Rashad saying basically the same thing last week. But Rashad was saying, you might get away with that third line for the regular season, but come the playoffs, you cannot run that third line in the playoffs. They will get absolutely eaten up and destroyed. And that's what I've been saying all along, because every game I watch, I am looking at the playoffs. The regular seasons only matter to get the points and the seeding for the playoffs. I want to see a team going into the playoffs ready to play playoff hockey. That's what I want. That's what I look for. That's what I want. That's how I judge the product on the ice. That is my bias. I am looking for a playoff ready team. I don't care if it's 50 games into the season. I am looking for a playoff ready team. And this team is not playoff ready. So anyway, back to the goaltending is, Stauffer was cherry picking stats saying, ever since the trade, it's turned the season around for the Oilers. No, that's not true. You can cherry pick stats and make it appear that way, but that's not the truth. The truth is the Oilers had turned their season before the trades. As I said, Skinner got a shutout. He had a couple of really strong games, and Pickard had a strong game as well. So 4 or 5 games before these trades, the team had turned the corner and were now playing better than they had in the first half. So Ingram and Jari came in to a better team than what Skinner and Pickard had in the first half of the season. Like I said, Stauffer is cherry-picking stats to reinforce his opinion. In my opinion, that's lying. That's why I say Bob Stauffer lies. If you're not doing that, then give us the whole stats. Because the truth of the matter is, go look at Pittsburgh. Prior to the trade, Pittsburgh was out of the playoffs not by a huge margin because the East is all condensed. But they were out of that by, I think it was about 6 points or so out of the second wild card spot. And they were on, it was either a 7 or 11 game losing streak, something like that. And then Skinner came in, they did the trade, Skinner came in, he had a rough first game, without a doubt. Like I to this day, I do not understand why teams play newly traded players against their old team, especially in their first game. And that's what happened to Stuart Skinner as he played the Oilers. So, well, the Oilers know his weaknesses, and yeah, they didn't, I mean, Skinner wasn't ready for the Penguins. He didn't know their style. There was no meshing. Since then, it took him about a week. Since then, however, Pittsburgh is coming out saying, Stuart Skinner turned our season around. We're now a playoff team, thanks to him. And he's up to a .902 save percentage. Well, he was below 900 before the trade. So he's got to be playing some pretty damn good hockey. I don't watch Pittsburgh, so I can't give you a hands-on play-by-play. I can just repeat what I've heard from media and that outside of the Edmonton market. And they're all raving about Stuart Skinner and saying he's turned it around for the Penguins and they're now a playoff team. Will they go far? Probably not. And they probably won't. Let's be honest about it. I would think for the Penguins, a successful season would be a second round, making it to the second round of the playoffs. If they do that, I think they will look at the season as that's their Stanley Cup, because they were out of it, completely out of it until that trade. And they're coming out and they're saying that Stuart Skinner turned this around for the team. So clearly Skinner, when he has a team supporting him, is not the problem. The problem in Edmonton was always the team was not supporting our goalies in that first half of the season. They weren't. The first 22 games, our team was freaking brutal. Now we've turned a corner where we're actually beating the teams we're supposed to be beating. Like last 3 games, we lost to the Islanders. We should have beat the Islanders, but we lost to them. And then we beat Vancouver and St. Louis. Well, Vancouver and St. Louis have the lowest offensive output in the league this year. So, and I think Vancouver got what? Well, they say they got 31 shots, but I honestly, if you go watch that game, because I did watch that game, I don't see how you come up with more than 17 shots in that game for Vancouver. I really don't. The ice was so tilted to the Oilers all game long. Even the first period where they say the shots were even for the most part. Okay, they were even, but I still felt the ice was completely tilted in the Oilers' favor. And then Vancouver had their 4th string goalie, so that wasn't going to work out well for them. And then we played the Blues. The Blues are a better team than the Vancouver Canucks. So I'm more impressed with Ingram's shutout than I am with Jari's shutout, just because of the quality of the opposition. I'm not taking anything away from either goalie for getting a shutout. A shutout is a shutout. And anytime any goalie can get a shutout, you give them props. But I still think the shutout to the Blues was more impressive than the shutout to the Canucks, because the Blues, well, they actually played a hockey game. Like the Islanders and the Vancouver Canucks, that wasn't hockey. That was shinny. That's all that was. That was non-contact shinny for the most part. So that's exactly what our team is designed to. So you take that into account. Well, we really shouldn't have lost to the Islanders because they gave us exactly what our team was designed to play. And it's no secret why you noticed our third line in the Islander game and the Vancouver game, but then in the Blues game, Rosovich got looks, But Howard and Savoy were invisible again because the Blues, even though they can't score, they were playing hockey. They were hitting, they were grinding, they were working. And when a team does that, even a low-level team like the St. Louis Blues are this year, Howard and Savoy can't compete. Like I've been saying right from the start of the season, though both of them should be in the AHL. They're not ready for the NHL. And I think Howard has the higher ceiling than Savoy for the NHL. That's my opinion. But I don't think it's this year. I think he has to stay now. I don't think they can send him back unless they want to go put him through waivers, and he would definitely not clear waivers. So I guess we're stuck with him. But I honestly don't think Howard or Savoy were ready for the NHL this season. But whatever. So anyway, that's the talk about the goalies. It's like, what I think is all four goalies, Jarry, Pickard, Ingram, Stewart, they're all good goalies. I don't think any of them are a AAA goalie, but I think they're all good AA goalies. So, Stuart Skinner, he's going to be a starter in this league. He's proving it in Pittsburgh. I wouldn't be surprised if he resigns in Pittsburgh, and I wouldn't be all that surprised if he resigns in Pittsburgh for less money than what we're paying Tristan Jarry. Because that's the other part of the equation is Stauffer was the first one I heard say this. I'm not sure if he was the first person saying this or he was repeating somebody else, but he was saying, well, Stuart Skinner is a UFA and he's going to get paid next year. Well, I don't see Stuart Skinner getting $5.5 million, or I don't see him getting more than $5.5 million. And that's what Tristan Jarry's contract is. So how is trading Skinner saving us money because he's UFA? Next year, if we had signed him, it would have been for the same or less than what we're paying Tristan Jarry. So basically, my take on this is we've gone from Stuart Skinner and Tristan Jarry are basically the same goalie. Like I said, they got different strengths, and maybe the puck moving is what the Oilers need. It's very possible. That was not a strength of Stuart Skinner. But in the overall thing, they're basically the same goalie, except one is paid down here and one is paid up here. And that's Tristan Jarry. So we're paying more for this year for the same goalie. That's my take anyway. But I'm not discounting that maybe Stuart Skinner needed to be traded. Maybe the Oilers were not the right team for him. Maybe the city was not the right city for him. And I won't argue with people making that argument, but I will argue till I'm blue in the face on people trying to say that we've upgraded our goaltending on our starter position. No, we made a lateral move. Skinner and Jarry, they're basically the same. Now, Ingram with 8 games, and 8 games is a short, small bracket, so I'm not going to go nuts like Stauffer is on that. But on a small bracket, Ingram does appear to be an upgrade over Pickard. But the real test will come for both Jarry and Ingram when the playoffs hit. Well, actually, before the playoffs, when we start playing top-level teams, when we start playing the Minnesotas, the Dallases, the Vegases in our conference, when we start playing them, that's going to be the first real test on Ingram and Jarry and how they do. And then after that, the real test will be, can either of them take us to the Stanley Cup final? Because in my mind, after 2 years of going to the Stanley Cup finals with this team, if Jarry and Ingram cannot backstop us to the Stanley Cup final, then they have not lived up to what Stuart Skinner did. I'm just taking it off the empirical data. Simple as that. So, yeah. So anyway, that's my long-winded talk for this video on that. So let's move on to the fun stuff. So, well, first off, let's go into the Oiler roster moves. Surprisingly enough, we got Jarry back. He wasn't supposed to be back for another week, is what Stauffer was saying. He was saying he was skating, but at the time he was saying he was skating, but it's still 2 weeks out. And that was a week ago, and Jarry came back. So we got Jarry back. We got Wallman back. We've lost Leon for a week or so because he's got an family member in Germany has an illness, so best wishes go to Leon and his family, and I hope everything works out there. And we got Kapanen back, but then Kapanen went down last game. From what they're saying today, it's not going to be a long-term injury, but he is going to miss a few more games. So he basically toe-picked and went shoulder leg into the boards. There was no dirty play. There was nobody else involved. He toe-picked and he went into the boards and he had a hell of a time standing up. He eventually did stand up, so that's a good sign, but he had a hell of a time standing up. So, hopefully it's shorter than what, but Kapanen seems to be having a rough time this season staying healthy. And we already knew about Henrique. Adam Henrique. See, I'm over calling him Matt Henriks. I don't know why that was in my brain last week, but anyway, Adam Henrique he's got a hand injury and he will be out until after the Olympics. So, hope rest up, Adam, and, come back stronger, I guess. Just unfortunate injury. And they have finally put him on long-term injury reserve, so we're building some cap space on him. As for the goaltending, we're carrying 3 goalies right now, but I don't know. I could see them doing it just because we got the Olympics and then we got the trade deadline so quickly after. I could see us carrying the 3 goalies right through the playoffs, and then I think Pickett's time is done. Because Pickett's not going to clear waivers. If we put him on waivers, he's not clearing waivers. So unless somebody comes with a deal we can't say no to, I think we're going to be carrying the 3 goalies, and Kelvin's just going to be like our backup goalie, practice goalie, and if Jari or Ingram or both stumble, Kelvin will come in, but otherwise, I think it's pretty much guaranteed it's the Jari Ingram show now. And yeah, that's about all that's going on with the roster moves. There's not much else going on there. It's we're getting healthier. We got 2 people out right now and 2 forwards, unfortunately, but hopefully Kapanen's back in a week or 2, and then also there's always the rumors of Mangiapane being traded, so we can pick up another forward on that. So I don't see them pulling up another player, at least until we know what's going on with Kapanen. Like if Kapanen turns into a long-term thing, then yeah, we'll have to pull up somebody from Bakersfield, but I don't see it happening until then. I think for the next week we'll just carry through with what we have, and then we'll go into I'm not sure when the Olympic break starts, but we'll go into the Olympic break. Everyone will heal up, and yeah, so that'll be that. All right, it's time for my favorite part of the weekly show, making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, we're going to start here when you see your dad for the first time and he's wearing a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey. Yeah, that kid's not impressed. Oh, go to The Simpsons. Wow, the fortune cookies here really are more accurate. The Leafs will exit the first round. Well, that's a safe prediction. Oh, we got a leftover from Christmas, so we'll just get this one out of the way. It's 2 Hab fan parents giving their kid a Austin Matthews Toronto jersey, and well, the kid's not happy about it. And for the final one of the week, you think you can hurt my feelings? I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Boston Bruin fans are just so brutal on the Leafs, and I love it. And that is making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It never gets old, people. It never gets old. I can do this all year, and I am going to. All right, so we had some games this past week. So let's get to the game recaps. Oilers versus Predators, game 47, January 13, 2026. So this was the game that Wallman and Jari returned. What I wrote is, so much for Stauffer saying last Saturday that Wallman would return at end of this 5 games in 7 days, and Jari was 2 weeks away. Yeah, that didn't work out, did it, Bob? All right, so this game went to OT. But at the end of the third, the shots on goal were 30-26 for the Oilers, but the score was 3-3. In OT, Predators goal at 1:17. Preds flipped the puck over Bouchard, who is stationary puck watching at the blue line, the offensive blue line. Nashville raced for the puck, but Jari comes way out to play puck, but is unable to get all of the way back into his net. So he played the puck. He didn't get good wood on it, but he broke the breakaway, but it went to the corner, and before he could get back to the net, the other Predator came and shot the puck into the net to score in the OT. So the Predators win 4-3. Shots on goal are 31-27. So I want to clear something up right off the bat. All the talk after this game was, whoa, Jari make a mistake, and Jari this and Jari. This was on Evan Bouchard. 2 goals this game. Evan Bouchard allowed Predators to get behind him, and he was unaware of it because it's what I talked about earlier in the video. He is not aware of his defensive responsibilities. He's not a good defensive player. And that's all that's about. And he allowed the Predator to get behind him. Like, if he was paying attention in OT, he would have come off the blue line with the Predator sneaking behind him. It's that simple. So this was on Bouchard. Jari made the best play he could, and if he had been able to get more wood on it, there wouldn't even have been a goal. Unfortunately, he didn't get a lot of wood on it. It went to the corner, and they shot it before he could get back into the net because he came really far out of the net to save Bouchard's bacon, So, 3 stars of this game. Number 1, Leon, 1 goal and 2 assists. Hyman, 2 goals, and McDavid, 2 assists. For the Slugs, I went with Knobloch and Bowman. Leon continues to excel versus the Predators. Hyman got 2 goals, 2 goal-mouth goals. And McDavid's 2 assists and a 20-game scoring streak. As for Knobloch and Bowman, they have designed a small, soft, one-dimensional team, and this is the result of it. Lots of skill, but as games get more physical and grinding, this team will struggle in those types of games if they don't get unlimited power plays. Oilers are now 23-16-8. All right, next game. Oilers versus Islanders. Game 48, January 15th. 2026. So the Ingram was announced to start this game, and Islanders win 1-0. Shots on goal were 36-18 for the Oilers. So let's get to the 3 stars out of the way. Since there was no physicality, no fights, no goals, no nothing beyond a skills competition in this game, and that's what this game was. This was shinny, non-contact shinny. There was no body checking. There was no physicality. There was no grinding. It was just a skills competition, and the Islander goalie won. So the 3 stars are Ingram, and Ingram. Slugs, no real slugs. It was a skills competition. You expect this team to do very well in skills competitions. So the game was, as I said, basically a skills competition. The standout was the goalies. Sorokin was excellent. Ingram was very good. Lazar and Janmark were very good in limited minutes. If I was to look for negatives, if this team had a physical presence, they could have opened things up more, but this team is not designed for that. I would have liked greater shot quality selection, but we've seen that be much worse, so it's not a major complaint. But we got goalie. Sorokin put up a brick wall. Again, if the Oilers could change these games into a muck and grind style, this game probably ends differently because Islanders had no desire to play physical or muck and grind. So Oilers are now 23-17-8. And nothing much else to say about that game. It was a skills competition, but the most skilled in the game was Sorokin, the Islander goalie. If you've watched me before, I don't instantly say goalied. Like there's analysts out there that, they got 36 shots on net. That means they were goalied. No, I look at the quality of the shots, not the number of shots. And that's what I said. Like, I would have preferred an even better amount of shots, like to the upper end net and mixing it up. But these were not all ice level shots like we've seen the Oilers do many times. So there was a mix, and Sorokin just played really, really, really excellent. So they won 1-0. Next game, Oilers versus Canucks, game 49, January 17th, 2026. So unless this game is an absolute banger, This will be a short recap, as I have said before, Saturdays are the worst day of the week for these recaps. I'm just busy on Saturdays, so I didn't write a whole bunch down. This was the first game Leon missed because of the illness to his family. He went to Germany. Jari was in net. The lines kind of confused me, but you can go watch my game recap for that one. I go into detail on that. So the Oilers win 6-0. Shots on goal were 35-31 for the Oilers, but Vancouver did not get 31 shots. I don't know what the hell the shot counter was smoking, but he was seeing double. I think maybe 17, maybe 18 shots at most. So that was a massively one-sided, and whoever is tracking shots on goal seeing shots by the Canucks I never saw. No way Vancouver got 31 shots on Jari. As I said, I didn't know it was the Canucks' fourth-string goalie in net. Apparently, it was supposed to have been Lankinen, but he came down with a illness an hour before the game. Well, he was well enough to dress as the backup, but not well enough to start. How that works, I have no clue, but I guess it made sense in Canuck land. Like, to me, it's like, if you're not well enough to start, you don't want an ill player in your locker room getting the rest of the players ill. So I think Lankinen just, the Canucks are not a good team this season, and they're getting worse, and they're trading off all their top stars. So I think Lankinen, he just didn't want to face the Oilers, is my gut feeling. So 3 stars, Jari, shutout. Rosevich, 2 goals. And Kapanen, 2 goals. Slugs, no slugs, and if there was in this game, that would be a direct ticket to Bakersfield, because it was that one-sided. Like, they scored 6 goals in the second period, and then they just sort of coasted in the third, and they still were by far the better team in the third. In coast mode, they could have ran up this score. Oilers are now 24-17-8. All right, and for the final game of this week, Oilers versus St. Louis Blues, game 50, January 18, 2026. So right off the bat, congratulations, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 1,000 NHL game milestone, and all as an Edmonton Oiler. Mad props. Seriously, huge props. What I wrote is, the Oilers have had Gretzky, Messier, Coffey, Pronger, McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, the best of the best. But there is 2 names that always held above all else in this market. Ryan Smith and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, because of who they are and what they meant and what they mean to this organization and city. And it was a great, I'm not a big guy for the celebrations before the games, but it was actually a really good celebration. So Ingram's in net, but it was same lineup. Oilers win 5-0. Shots on goal were 27-28 for the Oilers. So let's do the 3 stars right off the bat. Number 1, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. 1 goal, game-winning goal, and 1,000th game in the NHL and as an Oiler. Number 2 was Ingram, 27 save shutout. And the number 3 star was Zach Hyman, 2 goals and 1 assist. Slug, again, no slugs. So obviously huge props to RNH for winning goal and his 1,000th career game. Ingram's shutout is honestly more impressive than Jari's, but that's about the teams they faced, not diminishing accomplishment. Blues, just a much better team than the Canucks. And Hyman just keeps on stepping up massively. I wish we had a Zach Hyman on the third line. But while a great win, that outdoes what I expected in this 5 games in 7 days. And it's great to see us finally beating up the lower tier teams. And they are lower tier teams. The real test will come against the Vegases, Minnesotas, and Dallases. Those are the teams we need to judge ourselves against. And the Colorados. I keep forgetting about Colorado. Islanders, Vancouver, Blues, these are teams we should be beating handily. Also, wow, does Billington look bad. Can't help but wonder which goalie is going to step up and replace him in the Olympics, because he's not looking good. Oilers are now 25-17-8. And that's my video for this week. If you like the video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. Takes 1 second to subscribe, costs you absolutely nothing, helps me immensely. Just hit the subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. If you're watching this on Rumble, please follow my channel. always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage everybody to leave a comment. Not only does it get us interacting, but it really does help me with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. And as always, pew 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.